Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Lacey Parks Culture and Recreation Board meeting. It is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. I'm so happy all of us could be here. It's a full house this evening. Thanks for being on, Commissioner Dykstra. Appreciate it. I'd like to call our meeting to order at 5:30 exactly. And I'd like to have all of our members introduce themselves, and we'll start online.
Commissioner Hillary Dykstra.
Commissioner Osprey. Hi there. Would you like to introduce yourself now that I've introduced you?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, we can hear you. Yay.
Yay.
Is there anyone else online? Okay, and then we'll move into our room and we'll start with staff.
Good evening, Alyssa Fontaine, City Clerk. Brandy Legomina, Deputy City Clerk.
Hi, I'm Paul White, Deputy City Clerk.
Aaron Wheeler, Commissioner.
Lori Davies, Commissioner.
Amber Good, Commissioner Vice Chair.
Sue Laugh, Recreation Manager.
Sean Finney, Recreation Supervisor.
Justin Beard, Rec Supervisor.
I'm Aryan Kumar, I'm a youth member.
Thank you for being here. And I'm Commissioner Goodwin, Chair.
I'm Shannon Kelly Fong, I'm the Assistant City Manager.
And I'm Jenny Wilson, I'm a Senior Parks Planner.
And
Carter Gibson, Executive Assistant.
thank you, everyone, for being here. And now we'll move into our land acknowledgement read by Vice Chair Good.
The Parks Culture and Recreation Board meets on the ancestral land of tribal people of the Treaty of the Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe, Swaxon Island Tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of the Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial, and the role in today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories and dispositions, forest removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that the community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to the approval of our agenda and minutes. Do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda as written?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion and seconded. All those in favor of the agenda as written, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have a hand raising from Commissioner Fosbury.
Aye.
Okay, and Commissioner Dykstra has a hand up, so that's an
Aye.
aye. Okay. All those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carries that our agenda is approved. Moving on to the approval of our August 7th, 2024 minutes. Do I have a motion for approval as written?
Motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Wheeler will second that for us, Carter. Thank you. All those in favor of the approval of the August 7th, 2024 minutes, say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay. Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, our motion carries for the approval of the August 7th, 2024 minutes. Thanks, everyone. And now we're moving on to public comment. Do we have anyone pre-registered? And I didn't see anybody on the list that we had. Okay, and then public comment, there should be information in our packets that we read for correspondence, and they were addressed. And moving on to business item number 4, we'll have our new youth commissioner introduce themselves. What we decided, okay, so we'll have our new youth commissioner introduce themselves.
So, hi, I'm Aryan. I'm a junior at Timberline High School. And I chose the Parks Board primarily because of my hobbies. I like being outside, playing soccer, and taking photos outside. And I feel like this passion has driven me to take an opportunity to be on the board and figure out how our parks and recreation works. And my favorite park in Lacey is Rainier Vista, primarily because I live so close to it and I like the facilities they have there.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here and being. Now we will move on to our sports field fees update, given by Sean Finney, our recreation supervisor.
Sure. So I'm here to ask approval for the field rate increases for school district and city athletic fields as well as the regional athletic complex. Every 2 years, we generally will increase that by 3 to 5%. It's kind of a reflection across the board, and the packet that was sent out has the fees. The regional athletic complex is about a 5% increase. The athletic fields at the school district and at city fields are slightly higher than the 5% due to Sandy Can increases over the last several years. And just additional fees that we wanted to increase those to be in line with a lot of the other school districts and cities in the area. So yeah, I think you all have that packet with the fields rates increases. I won't take much of your time, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any for us.
Yeah,
Keep it short and sweet, man.
I appreciate that, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Did anybody online, Commissioner Dykstra or Commissioner Fosbury, have questions for Sean about the fee schedules that were in your packet?
I did not have any questions.
There you go. That's good. Okay, so we'll need a motion to approve the update to the sports field fees. Do I have a? So move. You know what? Any seconds?
Second.
And we have a second by Commissioner Davies. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
And Commissioner Fosbury raised hand as aye, Carter. Okay. All those opposed? Hearing none, we will move to approve the motion carries that we are approving the updates for our sports fields.
Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you for making that sort of switch.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
We're full fields again.
Yay! It's coming, it's happening. All right, and then we are moving on to our Lacey Community Center and Jacob Smith House rental fees update. By Justin Beard, our recreation supervisor.
Thank you guys for having me. Everything that Sean just said. Same thing, really. Every couple of years, we do cost comparisons at like facilities. Those are in the packet. We raise them approximately 5% every year. Nothing really has changed in that regard. We're getting rid of a couple things that we're not really using anymore. TVs are sort of outdated. Everyone's using projectors. So as the TVs go out of service, I'm replacing them with projectors. So you'll see that stricken. We're getting rid of the utensils at the community center. They're just more and more expensive to replace. We have nothing but problems with them, and we're the only facility in town that's still renting them out. So decided it was time to move away from those as well, but did raise the cost of the kitchen a little more than 5% to offset any revenues that we brought in from the utensils.
So for the utensils, is it gonna be bring your own? BYOB?
Well, all the caterers that come in have them. We don't do any cooking or serving utensils. It's really just table settings. And the cost of replacement is going way up, and we're not renting them out hardly ever. So
And we're gonna be able to use, or the senior center for some of their big events, we're going to still have them, so they will, senior center will be able to utilize them, we're not gonna just dump them, so
Oh, okay.
they will be going to good use.
So we're upcycling them.
Yes, we're recycling, yes.
Repurposing
Yeah,
them.
repurposing them.
Lead with that next.
There you go. With that.
That's great. Are there any questions or discussions about our Lacey Community Center and Jacob House rental fee updates? Anyone? All right. All those in favor of the approval of the rental fees for Lacey Community Center and Jacob Smith House? Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion to approve the Lacey Community Center and Jacob Smith House rental fees first.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Wheeler. Do we have a second?
Second.
From Commissioner Davies. Okay, we have all those in favor of the rental fee update, say aye.
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 Oh, we have another one. We have a small.
Yeah, that's
group. Commissioner Fosbury, was that aye for you as well? Yes, I guess that's a nod, yes. Okay. Any that oppose, say nay. Hearing none, motion carries. You have the approval of the rental fee updates. for
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to our board advisory board handbook updates given by Shannon Kelly Fong, Assistant City Manager, Alyssa Fontaine, our city clerk, Brandy Legomina, our deputy city clerk, and Paul White, our deputy city clerk. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us. We're here tonight, like you mentioned, to go over the advisory board handbook and then also talk about public records and public meetings and some best practices for public meetings. Please feel free to jump in if you have questions at any time. We're happy to answer them. So just, yep, question already.
Can you project up a little bit more?
Absolutely.
I'm deaf, I'm
I
sorry.
can speak louder. I can definitely do that. Yeah.
Just a bit.
So we want to start off with some key takeaways, and we're going to go into much greater detail on each and every one of these. But if you walk away with something, we want to walk away with these 4 items. And that is number 1, communicate with your staff liaisons. You know, anytime you have the opportunity to, please communicate with Jenny, to Carter, et cetera. Second, quorums are key. It's really nice to see all of you around this table and online. We can't do the business that you all do without having a quorum, and so it's really important for people to be here. There's a lot of work that goes on, you know, before the meeting, at the meeting, and then after the meeting, and we want to make sure that we can continue with all of those processes. 3, don't create any unnecessary public records. You will have to create public records, and we're gonna have a little bit more information on that from our clerk. And then finally, Robert's rules are here to help, and we'll hear some best practices from our 2 deputy city clerks. So we'll go over the handbook, we'll go over the public meetings and public records, and then those Robert's rules and meeting best practices. So to set some context and background on why we're here today, and we are going to our, 4 major advisory boards. You all are actually our last one. We're missing that. It sounds like we're breaking up the band here after this, but we're actually going to record what we're giving you all here tonight so that future people who are interested in advisory boards or are starting to serve on an advisory board can listen to this information as well. So the reason that we started looking at our advisory board handbook and taking a look at an update was because we had a Zoom bombing incident earlier this year with our Commission on Equity. And there was some absolutely deplorable, hateful, racist, reprehensible things that were said at public comment during the Commission on Equity meeting. And it really gave us a moment of pause to say, well, hey, what are we doing to prepare our advisory board members, our staff liaisons, and our city council to handle these types of situations when they come up? And so that's why we started to take a look at what was in our handbook and our city council policies and procedures related to public comment. We did a lot of background and research on this topic, and we started with the US Constitution and our First Amendment, which clearly says that you can't abridge the freedom of speech. We took that into account with what was hate speech and then also what was a hate crime offense. And so I think importantly in distinction, when we're looking at hate speech, this was from the American Library Association. In the United States, hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. Hate speech can only be criminalized when it directly incites imminent criminal activity or consists of specific threats of violence targeted against a person or a group. Here in Washington State, we do have a hate crime offense codified in RCWs. And you can see here that it says that words alone do not constitute a hate crime offense unless the context or the circumstances surrounding the words indicate the words are a threat. Threatening words do not constitute a hate crime offense if it is apparent to the victim that the person does not have the ability to carry out the threat. So we do have those 2 distinctions. When we were looking and researching on public comment is considered a limited public forum for free speech purposes, which means that governments like the city of Lacey can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech, provided that the regulations are reasonable and content neutral. Here in Washington, when you have advisory boards, when you have the governing bodies, you have to receive public comment at all regular meetings where final action is taken. So with all of that information and that background, we dove into the advisory board handbook and then also, like I mentioned, the council policies and procedures, but we're going to focus on the handbook today. And some things that we did to it, number one, we streamlined some of the content. So if you had read through the materials previously before the update, there was a lot of extra material that was repetitive in some places and also didn't have a, a plain talk lens applied to it. And so we tried to simplify it as best as possible and then make it as accessible as possible. We also wanted to update it with current information. So in our last copy, this was still the Board of Park Commissioners. And so I know you all had a name change and we wanted to make sure that that information was accurately reflected in the future. And then we updated public comment and the public hearing policies. And we also in our appendices added some additional tools for you all, for the chair, the presiding officer, and then also for our staff liaisons. So that includes a public comment script. So how to start public comment, and if something is to occur during public comment, what you all can do. That's included in the notes on public comment. There are some tips for ways to handle certain situations. And then finally, if there was a disruption, what you all could do in those cases. So we'll go into much more detail into all of these. The city council adopted the update to the handbook as well as their policies back in August. And this was really building on a long history of review by not only our Lacey City Council, but also our Commission on Equity. We brought it to our Lacey Youth Council. And then we also worked internally with staff liaisons to start the development and do the research on what we could possibly do and update. So just really quickly, you can see that we have a lot of elements in the handbook and we are going to go over several of them just in different kind of formats. So what I want to just highlight the big changes to public comment and then I'll open up the document itself. So number one, the public comment supersedes any advisory board procedures that previously existed. And the reason for this was that we wanted to establish a consistent way throughout the council and all of our advisory boards for how public comment is received. So in receiving public comment, you can receive public comment at a meeting in person. So we have the sign-in sheet like the chair mentioned. You also have the opportunity to call individuals who did not sign up to provide public comment in person. For remote public comment, you have to pre-register in advance of the meeting 2 hours. And so you can do that. All of the information is now provided on your agendas on how to do that. And this is through our Zoom program. You go click the link and it'll ask you if you want to provide public comment or if there is a public hearing, if you want to provide public hearing. So at 2 hours before the meeting, we cut that off and information is provided to the staff liaisons on whether or not anybody registered. This 2 hour cutoff also matches our written policy. So anybody who wants to provide written public comment has to do so 2 hours prior to the meeting. If a public comment is provided after that time, it will be in the queue for the next meeting. The presiding officer gets to determine the order in which they would like to take public comment, whether they want to start with the remote individuals who pre-registered or the individuals who are here in person. Every individual who is providing verbal public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Yeah, question.
Just a quick question, go back when you're submitting comment to the city, who is that emailed or submitted to? Is it the city clerk or is it dependent upon the committee? Because I know a lot of times in government affairs, that's what we, depending on the city, where is that actually placed?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're right, every city does it differently. Here with our advisory boards, it's going to depend on the advisory board itself, the
So, like,
location of the
per-
public comment.
You know, or Jen, or like, that's what I'm asking.
Yep.
Is it specified?
Yeah, and so if you take the agenda, for example, it should say on the back of it how to provide public comment. So on page 404, it says written public comment, and then it provides you the email address specific for Parks public comment.
Okay,
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that, because you didn't mention that. Thank you very much.
Nope, great question. And if you go on to, again, every agenda, it'll provide you the proper email address. It also does that on our website as well of who you can send that information to.
Okay.
So we have a question, Commissioner? Extra?
Yes. What is the reasoning behind requiring people to register 2 hours before the meeting to attend remotely?
Yeah, this is a great question. This was something that was discussed at several council meetings. And one of it was that it, takes again, some effort for the individual to sign up in advance. So the Zoom bombing incident that we had, people raised their hands, and that was previously, there was the policy for that board, if you could bring someone over if they had raised their hand and wanted to provide comment. What that, didn't allow us to do was to say like, who is the individual, and you do have to provide your name, your residence or connection, and then also your topic. I do want to stress that that doesn't mean that an incident like what happened at the Commission on Equity couldn't occur again, but it's just putting in that additional step for remote attendees to have to provide public comment. And the 2-hour cutoff was really modeled after the written public comment as well, and to provide our staff the time to get the information from our public affairs department, who oversees all of our public meetings, to our appropriate staff liaisons.
If I may.
Oh, I just had one more question. Sorry. Go ahead. Could that be considered like unnecessarily obstructing someone from attending the meeting? Because they don't have to register to attend in person, but they have to register to attend remotely.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, Commissioner, and it kind of goes with the comment that I was going to make, which is the registration is not for attendance, it's for comment.
I see.
So someone can still log in as an attendee to the Zoom meeting at any point during the meeting and observe the meeting, just like anyone can walk through the door and come in and sit down at any point. But it's the to provide public comment portion that requires registration.
What if they didn't? Sorry.
Yeah, I think first of all, that's a great clarification. And so like Paul mentioned, there's multiple ways you can view it, and you can still hop on Zoom to watch any of the public meetings in addition to the other ways you could access it from streaming service.
But if something, an item or an issue is generated through discussion in the meeting, and that person's online and suddenly they do have a comment based on the discussion of the meeting, they're prohibited from making their comment because they didn't register 2 hours in advance. I mean, I think that's gonna really minimize truly getting public input.
It's a little bit.
I will also, on the government affairs side of when we have to speak, the other point is that there's somebody in this office over here, like you said, from public affairs, that's receiving these electronic copies of input, but that has to be able to get from point A to point B. And this makes adequate time for that information to properly make it to the committee, to be able to review the information prior to the thing. That way we have time, because we can't stand here. Let's say we got 100 people submitting comment. We can't sit here, getting them 10 minutes prior and trying to adequately review and include that into our understanding. So 2 hours gives that that time for the city to do what they need to do to get it to us. So we are able to adequately review it, because otherwise it's just a stack of papers that we're not even considering. So that's the focus into that.
Commissioner Davies, I do want to go back to part of what I heard in your comment, which is just the reaction to maybe something that was discussed at the Parks Board. And I think, a couple of things that I noticed. Number one, most of our advisory boards have their public comment period at the beginning of a meeting. And so it comes before any discussion of this body. Now, I think there are some unique advisory boards where it's at a different time. But also anytime after the meeting, you could provide public comment, whether written or verbal public comment at the next meeting as well, for individuals if they do want to.
And potentially it will continue to be considered as either the board or the city council makes decisions on the item that was raised or discussed or was out for public comment. I guess I'm kind of maybe wondering as we head down the discussion on park funding, that it's going to be hard probably for just the average public to be totally well versed on the proposals that come from the work group on the park funding, to be able to register 2 hours in advance and not hear and see presentations and then react to those presentations and those kind of things, just because in the agenda you have written presentation, but you may or may not really understand what's behind it. And so I just think it, you know, it limits, it limits. I mean, I've done a lot of public involvement with the state. So it just limits the kind of input you could get.
Just want to confirm with staff here with the park improvement funding work group, public comment is located where in the agenda?
The same place.
At the beginning. At the beginning. Okay, so it's also at the beginning. So
Yeah.
again, kind of the same scenario.
I just, maybe we should reorganize the agenda so that it isn't always at the beginning. I mean,
Well, and I think we had some discussions about that as well, but part of it is that accessibility, right, of individuals, you know, maybe want to provide the public comment and don't need to stay, you know, the duration of a full meeting. Maybe they just want to have that item and then head out. And it's also, I think in kind of being able to plan for when that timing is. If you know the public comment is the first or second item that's on an agenda, you can show up, you know, and reasonably within the first 10 minutes of a meeting, know the public comment is going to occur.
Right.
If it's at the end, it could, you know, this presentation itself could take anywhere, we're hoping around, you know, 45 minutes, but depending on questions, maybe an hour and a half. And that individual who came in to provide public comment is, you know, waiting through all of that to provide their comment. Or if they want to join the meeting, it becomes kind of when would be the appropriate time. So I don't
it's
miss
gonna be
public comment.
the well-educated, I mean, we don't need to belabor this, but it's just gonna be the well-educated person, especially when it comes to the public, the funding, to be able to make public comment before they actually see some of the presentations. It's, you know, it's gonna be somebody who's gonna have to be well-versed and has been tracking it pretty closely, not your average citizen that is out in the community. That's all.
If I may, the board has just never really operated where as we are going through the items, that then we invite comment about that, like if the, you know, it would be, you know, they would have to take what they learned from that meeting and then verbalize a comment, then bring it to the board's attention to maybe address.
No, I
at a later
appreciate
date
that.
for
I'm
for that
thinking
individual.
more of these big ticket stuff, not, you know, reviewing a park plan or something like
Right.
that that's been out there for repeatedly and things like that.
Okay.
Well, I
Chair,
think-
can I make a comment? Sorry. Just listening to this and having a little experience in this realm. A 2-hour limit before the meeting for written comments, that seems appropriate for things that are on the agenda. But when things get changed on the agenda or there's amendments, I think people need an opportunity to have multiple chances to comment. I think they should be able to come into the meeting and talk about the budget. And then we do our thing. And then if suggestions or compromises or other things happen, I think the law requires that we accept public comment in the middle. And so I'd love these protocols because they give us some guidelines, but these should not, I'm sorry, they're not the law. We have to accept comment when a board is going to make actual policy recommendations to the governing body. So, and we don't make multiple changes, so it's not going to really disrupt us, but I would appreciate to hear if there was somebody that came in and said, hey, I heard what you were going to do and then you changed your minds and then yay, you're going to put up the public library at Wedgewood Park or whatever. So that's my thoughts.
Commissioners, maybe just to clarify a couple of points based on the comments that were just made is number one, for the public comment period, you only need to have a single public comment period.
Yep, I know.
Where final action is taken. And I think the other element to note too is there are public hearings too that a board could have on a particular item if they so chose. So for example, if you were making a decision on the future about funding, you could have a public hearing that is properly noticed to the community through your agenda. And that way that would provide people from the community that opportunity to come in and speak specifically to that agenda item before a final action is taken.
Forgive my ignorance, but to what extent does this board actually make a final decision about something like funding? Or is it more that you make a recommendation to city council to make a final decision?
That's more of what it is.
Oh.
We are kind of sitting on an advisory board status. So the Parks Improvement Funding Work Group is different, which has just been established, what, 2 months ago?
But the fees
Well, I
that
think
we
that
just
that-
approved is, the fees that we just approved is funding. I mean, technically, that's
It's a
funding
budget.
that we just approved.
And that was not a proposal, then you were actually, you are empowered to determine the fees for use and so forth.
Yeah, we could say nay and say that's not what we want to do for the budget or concessions, or we can vote that out differently. The park improvement is like the MPD or a PFD or big ticket items that we're doing for.
Maybe just to add another clarification on that, Paul, and then I'll let you take it from there, but also with that ad hoc work group, it's still a recommendation.
Right.
It's going to council, not a final action.
I guess I'm just coming from wanting to include more people rather than less, and this
Well-
feels like we're trying to ratchet down how we include people in it. That's really where I'm coming from.
I appreciate that, I do, and I think we all recognize that that's an important driver. I guess the point that I would like to leave you with or suggest is that for most of these decisions, since you're not making the final decision, people will still have another chance to make their opinion heard on that by going directly to their elected council members, for example. And so I just, hopefully that will allay a little bit of the concern. I understand though, the sentiment of wanting more public input. Yeah, I do.
And on the other flip side for public comment, being exclusionary, having hate speech within your commission where it goes on.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
totally
That would
am all
be total,
behind that.
yeah, that would be very exclusionary and that would make me not want to come to public comment if that was going on repeatedly. So I think this is kind of guardrails protecting us as individuals, as volunteers on a commission to come in and not be, hate speech being part of our commentary for the public to be a part of. So, but even though it can be.
If I may add to, and I think Shannon will also get to some of this as part of the presentation, but having a template and a streamlined process for all of our advisory boards that match and that coincide with what is going on with council really gives the public proper notice and expectations of when they can provide public comment. It's not a dialogue, it's not a discussion, it's public comment for them to provide to the board or to their council, and they know when that is. And I think to some of the comments, sometimes you then get into the agenda and there are a lot of educational opportunities and they might prompt some additional thoughts or comments that they could bring back, but inviting them back up at a time that's not properly noticed on the agenda gives them it's a disadvantage to anybody else that may be remote or that may be watching later or that may not, had provided their public comment and then left the meeting. So that's kind of what we're trying to provide as much access and accessibility, but not and have it be properly noticed and planned and for the public to be able to come in and do that. So by learning more throughout the agenda, I think to Commissioner's point of then they can then document a written follow-up or come back to additional meeting and say, last week you spoke on this and I would like to provide some comments on that. So that's what we would encourage and recommend instead of inviting a dialogue on a specific item.
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa. And I think going just right back to what Alyssa was saying, and that's where we can, again, when we're looking at limited public forums, we've got some parameters, right? And they have to be that we can regulate time, place, manner of speech, reasonable and content neutral. And so, in Alyssa's example that she was just mentioning, if an individual is allowed to speak outside of public comment, but there is no opportunity for anybody else to speak on other types of comments, it's whether or not we're creating a consistent standard across for every single item that's on an agenda. Or creating an expectation that there will be a limited forum for every item. Does Hillary have another?
Commissioner Dykstra, do you have a question? Another question?
Yeah, just I thank you for letting us talk through this. It does not sit well with me. I am not I abhor hate speech, and I think that Zoom bombing is awful. And at the same time, I think there may be some unintended consequences by limiting who can provide comment remotely because of that 2-hour limit. And I hope maybe that could be reconsidered at some point. It's highly inconvenient and you okay? Unpleasant if people were to continue to do the Zoom bombing, but I don't know. Part of living in a democracy is we have to deal with people that are not kind. Anyways, it just doesn't sit well with me. And I wanted to share that.
I appreciate the comments and thank you. This is a very robust conversation. We really like the feedback and enjoy hearing from you also. Thank you on that. Just to go back to the presentation itself, unless there's any other questions, we're happy to answer them. So with the new policies in the advisory board handbook, any commenter who is providing verbal comment would be limited to 3 minutes. And public comment would be limited to a total of 30 minutes. However, public comment periods can always be extended by the consent of the body. So back to the example, Commissioner Good, that you mentioned, where 100 people here are wanting to speak, you could always extend the public comment period.
Or shorten the time limit to speak, like from 3 minutes to a minute, 30 seconds.
Not in this policy.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just curious.
No, and yep, previously that was a tool that other, advisory boards and the council had used as well. But at this point, it's establishing 3 minutes for everybody. And then it could be another time limit. So it could be extended for a 30-minute period. It could also be moved for an extension at the end of the meeting as well. So that way you can get through all the business items. And then you can always extend public comment periods to
Public hearing.
yeah. So as far as providing public comment verbally, you have to provide your name, your residence and or connection to the city. So you don't have to be a resident to the city. You could say, for example, I have a parent who lives in the city of Lacey and we're concerned about whatever. And then also just a highlight of what your topic would be. And it could be, concerns on a tree in a park, for example. And it also has a list of prohibited items that we'll go over here in detail. So those are kind of the high level overview, and then we'll take a look at each and every one of these appendice elements. So I want to show you all just how you would get to the document where you can find it. Let's start here. Oh, not that one. Of course, the one that doesn't work. Let's see here. This one, athletic fields. Athletic fields, that's this one. All right, so if you were looking for this document, I just want to walk you through where you can find it. So you'd go to our city homepage. And do you mind typing that in? Oh, sorry, yeah. Thank you. Great. So we're on the city homepage and under government, you have advisory boards. And so if you select advisory boards, it provides information about all of our advisory boards, the advisory board stipend program, and then also the standards, protocol, and ground rules with the advisory board handbook. So select that and it will open up to the updated version here. We're not going to go through all of the details in here. I just want to point out where you can find the information that I just went over. So you can see that our public comment, we now have the section here in open government requirements. We have public comment, public hearing, and then meeting disruptions. And we're going to jump down to 208. All right, so 208 provides all of the information that I just highlighted above. It talks about how the Lacey City Council adopted this. It mentions that individuals can address advisory boards regarding matters connected to city business, including specific agenda items or items not on the agenda. Again, how you can provide the comment in person, remote, written comments, all of the rules that I just went over. And then also the items that are prohibited at public comment, so addressing topics that have specific public hearings. Electronic and physical presentation recordings and props are not allowed. Let me zoom in there. Banners and signs are allowed as long as they're on the back wall and do not impede the view or the work of this body. Disruptions or interruptions, including clapping, cheering, booing, interrupting speakers, candidate endorsements are not allowed. And the body maintains the ability to stop people from speaking to the body when not recognized by the body to speak. And then specific threats of violence targeted against a person or group with a reasonable fear of harm to a person or property or sexual harassment. In addition to the public comments update, we also had updates to the public hearing policy, and it mirrors a lot of what's in the public comment policy with a couple of exceptions that I just briefly want to go over. So the first difference is that the individual who provides testimony only have to provide their name and their city of residence or connection to the city. They don't have to provide their topic because presumably it's what the public hearing is on. For public hearings, individuals are still limited to 3 minutes to their testimony. However, there is no time limitation to the public hearing. It's open and whenever the individual has the opportunity to provide public testimony, it then is closed. So those are the main differences here between the two policies. The rest remains the same. And then also added this section in here of talking about meeting disruptions and what advisory boards can do with a meeting disruption, including removing the disruptor, having the room cleared, and then adjourning the meeting, and then providing the steps under which that would occur. And I do want to highlight that a vote must occur to adjourn the meeting and a vote on the new location. The chair presiding officer can't do this by themselves. It takes the entire body. There is a reference in one of our appendices here to follow that we are going to update a little bit to reflect this a little bit better. All right, so that takes us to our appendices, and I'm going to jump down here. We've got all of the various advisory boards, rules and policies and procedures in there, so you can take a look at every advisory board and see what they're doing. But what we added here under Appendix 6 is a public comment script. And this is again to provide tools for our presiding officers. So, prior to starting a meeting, you can make an announcement about how you could provide in-person public comments. And then also just some information on how this is really the time to hear from the community. And it's not a dialogue, it's not a discussion, it's really for the individuals to pass on their perspectives or their concerns or their issues to the advisory board. And then it goes into the details of things like limiting 3 minutes, not donating your time to other speakers. And then also gives a script here for if comments go over 3 minutes, what the presiding officer could say. So for example, thank you for your comment. Your time has expired and we now need to move on to the next commenter or to our next agenda item. Also what they need to provide as far as their name, city of residence, or connection to the city, their topic of comments, and then a script here. If some individual doesn't provide it, just a reminder, we really are interested in hearing what you have to say. Could you please provide the information or whatever information that may be missing. So that's provides some good kind of guidance for presiding officers and advisory boards. The other thing that we added here in Appendix 7 is notes regarding public comment, and this just provides a little bit more detail on how the individuals in the community have the right to make personal, critical, harsh remarks, including vulgarity, obscenity, and hate speech. We went over that in our research. There are things that bodies can do though after those comments are made. And so again, thinking about the comments themselves, allowing the individuals to go through their 3 minutes or when they end their comment and then have a general response, not a dialogue with the individual making those particular comments. So for example, responding to problematic comments. This is an example of responding to hate speech. Where you could say something like, the comments that were just made are deeply problematic, harmful to the community, contain hate speech, and are wholly inconsistent with our community's values. The city is committed to eradicating all forms of racism and oppression and working to change that leads to a more equitable society for all community members. So again, not a dialogue with the individual, but a broad statement on what was just said. Provides information on what hate speech is and what hate crimes are, again, with the RCW. It also provides some example of how you could respond to comments that are made to this body that maybe would be more appropriate for another advisory board. And again, it's not cutting the individual off, it's allowing them to have their 3 minutes and provide their full comments, but then maybe directing them or providing a correction. So one of the examples that I like to use up here is if somebody in their comment said Alyssa Fontaine was the city engineer, after they're done with their comment, you could say, as a correction, Alyssa Fontaine is the city clerk. I do want to just highlight too that there's always the ability for you to wrap up after a comment of, we'll connect you with a city staff member. And that way they can have a dialogue and discussion on what that issue is and find a way to connect and talk about that more. Another example that we provided is maybe some information is provided that has another governing body and directing them to the more appropriate governing body. So in this example, comments about the school district's policy should be provided to the school district. The school district is a separate governing body from the city and it has its own policymakers. So just giving that direction, but not a dialogue. It also talks about how, individuals have the right to talk, but they don't have the right to disrupt. So we'll get into disruption and again, providing the what you can do during a disruption and all of the details above. We also added here in Appendix 8 a disruption script for city council and advisory boards. So if there is an individual who just keeps running long, again, how to wrap that comment up and move on. Or if there's actually something where this body can't continue to do its work because somebody is disrupting the meeting itself. And so we're gonna update this language. This was the language that I mentioned previously, just to reflect again that the body here has to take a vote to adjourn the meeting and pick a new location. So those are our updates on the advisory board handbook regarding public comments and public hearings. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We are gonna turn it over to the clerks for the next section after that.
I do have one. Sure. Now that we're done with discussion, okay. So just to clarify, if we have, it's something that's problematic and we say the comments that were just made, at what point do we say that comment? Is it clear the room, stop the presentation? I mean, how do we, what's the step? Does it go stop what's happening and then say this comment? Or do we say the comment and then we click or have to stop the disruption?
So
So they're finishing something that's not appropriate.
Okay.
We say this comment, this is not what we approved. Do we have to stop or make a decision as to carry on or not?
Going.
So-
If it's just like that one person, you can just keep going. But if it's like this continuous disruption, it's like can't get control, then the board can vote.
So say the comment first and then,
So if someone's saying something objectionable, you wouldn't interrupt them necessarily
right,
to do that.
right.
But when they finish, then you might add some of that scripted content.
Okay, so they finish, we put the comment into place, and then if they continue on, then we have to follow up with actionable items or move on to the next
Well-
agenda or item or just.
Failing to yield would be a disruption at that point, yeah.
Okay,
If they're done making their comment and don't continue to make any comments, then you guys can proceed with your meeting.
oh, okay.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, so Chair, you could make that comment and then ask the next individual to provide their public comment or move on to the next agenda item
Okay,
in that case.
okay.
And so with remote public commenters, we do have the ability to mute them after their 3 minutes are up. And so they will not be able to provide any additional disruptions like what occurred at our Commission on Equity meeting.
I would shut it down.
And Chair, we'll have your back. We will make a motion.
Well, I think mostly was what I was looking for was the language on how you address it so that there is, if it does come to that there is something that you de-escalate the situation for people to view what we're doing. That it's okay to just come in and Zoom bomb people, that we have something that we can use as a tool, which is counter hate speech dialogue of some kind. So the big went on, like what happened to Equity, that was like, I mean, I couldn't imagine sitting through that. I mean, for that long period of time, that would be really hard, so.
And we didn't do that in Tacoma. We shut it down. You don't allow it to happen. You tell them, this is our rules. We're not gonna do it anymore. Stop. Warning, warning. And then we shut you off.
Do you wanna?
Sorry.
On that, or?
So again, commissioners, when we're looking at hate speech, that is a First Amendment protected, right? And so they have the right to their 3 minutes. And then again, this body could make a comment broadly, not engaging the individual in dialogue, but just saying how problematic the comments are and how they don't reflect this body or the belief of the city.
They would be permitted their 3 minutes, and there may be more than one. And if they properly signed up and registered to provide public comment, as unfortunate as that is and feels, they would be permitted their 3 minutes. And we could not cut them off or mute them until that 3 minutes is up.
Objectionable comment, objectionable statements by themselves are not a disruption, is the key there. But, you know, when someone starts to threaten someone, when people start to shout or, you know, lie down across the doorways in body bags, then that becomes something different.
I was just gonna mention, other attendees may not be as well versed in these, like, what is freedom of speech and what's not, and why aren't they shutting this down? Like, I think it could also be helpful for those who are attending. Let's say somebody in their 3 minutes shares hateful speech, but it's not technically a disruption. We acknowledge that what was said does not align with our city's values. I think it could be helpful to also mention to folks, like, every community member who is in attendance does have the right to share their opinion. It does not mean that reflects the city's values. And if someone is saying something offensive, you can, mute your computer while that person is talking and unmute it when they're done. I don't know, just to kind of help people who are attending virtually so they understand, like, why we can't just shut it down, or why we can't interrupt somebody in their 3 minutes of unpleasant talk.
Commissioner Dyker, I think you summarized that really well, and the tools that we've provided are just some information, and there is some language somewhat similar to what you're saying, but I think, providing the opportunity for community members on their own accord to mute, that is always something you can say. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on? All right. Is this
I'm just part one. I'm gonna. turn it over to
okay,
Bruce and,
we've got part two.
Multi-part,
Okay, but wait,
yes.
there's more to be
There's
continued.
more.
Okay.
Lots of windows open, that's fine. Right. All right, well, thank you again for having us here tonight. We're gonna kick off part two, which is gonna cover our public meetings and public records. So, for this.
Before you start, will this count for our 4-year, I don't know, credit?
You're good. You looked ahead in my slides. Yes, short answer is yes. So
Okay.
we'll cover that and get you covered for it.
I'm here. Okay.
All right, but yes, we're gonna do a general overview of public records and open public meetings, go over some key definitions and talk on compliance and how it's a shared responsibility. Touch on some resources and then end it with some best practices. All right, so the Open Public Meetings Act, in an effort to make government affairs more open, transparent, and accessible, legislatures passed the Open Public Meetings Act in 1971. This allows, in most cases, the public access to the full details of all phases of deliberation, policy, and the decision-making process. So the Open Public Meetings Act, or the OPMA, governs public meetings, but what constitutes a meeting? A meeting will occur when a quorum or a majority of a governing body gathers with the collective intent of transacting the body's business. Meetings do not have to be in person to be subject to the OPMA. And meetings can occur by telephone, email, or other electronic media. So this is an important note that we'll touch on later, that ties into compliance and making sure we don't violate the OPMA. So what is a quorum? So a quorum is a majority of the governing body, but touching on some government bodies with voting and non-voting members. I know we've talked about the Parks Improvement Funding Work Group a little bit tonight. A quorum would be the smallest number of people who must be present at the meeting for official decisions to be made by voting. So everybody here is all a voting member. So your quorum, I believe this is a 7-member advisory board. So your quorum would be 4. All right, so if you don't have a quorum, what happens? So seeing in the visual here that with a quorum, you can do it all. You can hold your meeting as advertised and published to the public. You may take action. With that comes staff facilitation and support to live stream the meeting, make accessible remotely, record it for access into the future, and then also take the minutes. Without a quorum, we lose access to a lot of these functions. And so we're gonna go over these specifically in the next couple slides, but starting with no quorum, it halts a lot. And I will touch on the yellow cautionary circle in the next slide. And also we're gonna touch on losing a quorum. So you had a quorum, you started your meeting, but unfortunately lost it throughout the process of the agenda. So we'll go over that as well. So what to do if there is not a quorum to start a meeting? Prior to meeting start time, the presiding officer, the chair and staff, it's good to confirm attendance, checking in on those remote and also in person. This is kind of tying back into communication. It is great to keep an open line of communication with your staff liaisons if you're running late. If you know you won't be able to be there, or if you know that, hey, I'm going to be remote at this meeting, letting them know so that they know where to check for a quorum. So if there is no quorum at the start of a meeting, so 5:30 comes and there's no quorum, best practice is to work with staff to start the meeting as close to that start time as possible and provide an announcement that you're actually currently waiting for a quorum and that you anticipate to start shortly if that's the case. And then you would go on mute while you wait for that quorum to arrive. This is kind of where that communication is key. If we are expecting a quorum, staff know that someone's just pulling into the parking lot or they're running just a few minutes late. That's something that you guys can prepare for and make that announcement and know what to expect. So once a quorum is confirmed, everybody arrives and you may then unmute and proceed with holding the meeting. So all those green circles come back and you're good to go. If a quorum cannot be confirmed, so you've come on, you made an announcement, and then ultimately that 4th member just didn't show up and you're not able to continue with a quorum, you would go back online and announce that the meeting will not be held since a quorum is not confirmed. And it would have to be rescheduled for a future date. So a meeting could not occur, no action can be taken. So that would be something that we would come online and still make an announcement. So those who were looking to attend remotely would have that information, as well as anybody here in attendance. Any questions so far? Alrighty. what to do if it's lost, after the meeting has started. So this is something that staff are kind of working on, making sure that, with remote attendance, or if you're all here in person, just if, somebody steps out or multiple people step out or somebody, you're close to, a quorum and somebody loses connectivity, staff will work with the chair on making an announcement the second a quorum has been lost. If a quorum is not expected to be regained, this is that communication key. If, oh, by lost Wi-Fi, I'm logging right back in, then you would have to immediately adjourn the meeting. If a quorum is expected to return, it might be a great time for a recess. And so we're gonna take a short break. We anticipate on reconvening the meeting after a 5-minute short recess, when we anticipate a quorum. And again, a reminder that no action can be taken without a quorum. All right, so why is this important? So touching on the training that got brought up earlier, all elected and appointed officials must complete trainings under the OPMA within 90 days of assuming the duties. So that extends to you all here on advisory boards. Refresher courses are required at least every 4 years. And it is our intent by being here tonight that you all here in attendance will receive credit for that refresher training. So we'll update those records. I see hand waving. So if you need a certificate for any other purpose, definitely reach out, let us know, and we can provide that. If not, we will just update our records. If you only need it for this board, then we can update it on our end and not necessarily create any unnecessary records to pass on to you all, unless, of course, you need it. So yes, by providing education, really, we're just trying to make that best investment towards mitigating risk of non-compliance and just keep it at the forefront of our minds. Some liabilities under the OPMA. So any action taken at a meeting that is held in violation would be considered null and void. Also, any member of a governing body who attends a meeting that knowingly violates the OPMA is subject to personal liabilities of $500 for a first violation and $1,000 for any subsequent violations. As well as any person who prevails against an agency in a court action or an OPMA violation would be receiving, may be awarded costs, and that can include attorney fees as well. So it can be costly, but also all right, so meeting support. Compliance is a shared responsibility, and so the clerk's office works really closely with our staff liaisons to help ensure that our meetings that are subject to the OPMA adhere to the following requirements at the minimum. There are more, but these are some key ones. So the agendas for your meetings are all published well in advance, give the public proper notice on how to attend, what's going to be discussed, and then establishing quorum. Making sure that we have a quorum, working with you all on schedules or conflicts. If we know that multiple members can't make a meeting date, then that's something that we can plan for and maybe reschedule or provide that proper notice. Something else that we coordinate and provide notice for is potential quorums. If you are all invited potentially to a tour with another advisory group, say maybe this Friday. We provide notice to the public for that event and making sure that everybody has that information. We also provide draft meeting minutes for all of you to take final action on and approve, and that becomes your official record or part of the official record. And then that proper noticing, talking about that potential quorum, but also if there's cancellations or if it's been rescheduled, making sure that the public has access to that information as quickly and in advance as possible. Some resources and meeting support continued. Shannon highlighted some of this on our website earlier, but the advisory board handbook is a great tool. There's a lot of information in there. We just touched on a little bit of it tonight. So definitely if you have questions, browse through that. Also, we have our public meetings portal. By visiting the city webpage, The center circle that's highlighted there in the red box takes you to our public meetings portal where you can access all of your agenda packet materials, and then approved minutes. So for your board as well as all the others that the city has as well, including council. Providing available trainings, we're kicking off the roadshow or wrapping up the roadshow. And then ultimately looking to the future to have more consistent trainings for you all. And then if there's any questions, reach out to staff or ask a clerk. We're definitely happy to help. So how can you help? I think this slide, we're gonna touch on a few things for you know, your role as an advisory board member, and then also how it ties back into some of that compliance and just making sure that we don't violate any OPMA rules. So by having a designated staff member distribute informational documents for meetings, this really kind of helps give passive receipt of information electronically, but avoids having discussions of issues with a majority or a quorum of the body. So email can be a meeting. So I'm sure we've all heard serial meetings, and are different variations of the term, but essentially a serial meeting occurs when a majority of members have a series of smaller communications or gatherings that results in a majority of the body collectively taking action. So this is something that really staff are kind of the designated coordinator for passing along that information, and it doesn't fall to one of you all to send out information to the board electronically. To that note, not sending an email to all of the body or a majority of the body, just within yourselves. And then we ask that you don't reply all when the recipients are all or a majority of the body. Also playing it smart with travel arrangements, unless it's been properly noticed and you all get on the same bus as we've noticed to the public to go on a tour. But just kind of that perception of, you know, if there's multiple people all traveling to the same place, maybe not have a quorum all in one vehicle. And then advising the staff liaison and the chair, if appropriate, that you are unable to attend a meeting as soon as possible, and this includes as well as if you're gonna be late or if you're gonna be attending remotely, just so that we can plan for and know how to best accommodate the meeting. Any other questions on this? All right, guys are making it easy. All right, part 2, we're gonna get into Public Records Act. So the Public Records Act was enacted in 1972 to provide the people with broad rights of access to public records. Washington State's Public Records Act is actually one of the strongest open government laws in the nation and supports a transparent and accessible government. So what is it? Public records are defined as any writing that is prepared, owned, used, or retained by a state or local agency. And by members of an advisory board for the city, that includes the work that you all do. And writing is very broadly defined. And because we have so many useful tools, it extends to technology and all the ways that we communicate and create records. So any communication and documents created, whether it's electronic or physical, that are received, used as part of your duties relating to the advisory board may be considered a public record. There is no distinction regarding whether or not the record was created or stored on a personal device or account. This is a big reason too why you all have city issued email addresses so that you can exercise their roles and responsibilities within an account managed by the city and ultimately keep all of your records contained in that space. So the city is subject to legal authorities that require public records be retained for different lengths and time depending on the content. The active preservation and destruction of public records is governed by a statute that we all work very closely with, but also the Public Records Act is another statute that is alongside that governs the availability and the disclosure of public records. So those two things work kind of alongside each other to make sure that we are preserving and destroying when eligible records under one statute, but also making them available under disclosure. Agencies are subject to strict response times and have to respond to public records requests within 5 business days of receipt. Requests for public records can be made formally or informally to any employee or elected official. And by formally or informally, that means we do have a space on our website that we recommend that if any member of the public wants to go and log in and submit a public records request, they can. But they may also just walk in and come to the front counter and ask over the counter or in person to an employee, and that's accepted as well. So with your roles on the advisory board and having city issued email accounts, you may find at one time a request comes to you through electronic communications to that email. It is crucial that any requests for agency records be forwarded to disclosure staff as soon as possible. So, you know, you've got Jenny and Carter's information on speed dial, I would hope. So getting it over to them is absolutely appropriate and they will ultimately get it to the clerk's office. But if you have any one of our numbers, you feel free to shoot it straight to us as well. So going back to email, the city may provide advisory board members with official city email addresses, and you all do have that. And so email accounts may not be used for personal communication. This is strictly for the roles and responsibilities as advisory board members. All city email accounts will be captured and retained per city policy and legal requirements. So you are able to manage those, clean them up. If you delete something in spam, that's fine. They are captured on our servers and we can manage and recover them if needed. So don't feel like you have to, you know, leave everything in an inbox if you like to file, if you like to clean up, if just managing your inbox in whatever way suits you. They are captured on our servers. But just making sure that all communication under your role as an advisory board member happens through that account is key. So the city clerk is the official public records officer for the agency, but we have a great team. We have staff within our city clerk's office as well as our police department and joint animal services that all process and are deemed designated official disclosure staff. So checking in with staff liaisons or the clerk's office if you have any questions, we are definitely here to help and we love records. This is our area, so. How can you help? So we've touched on this a little bit throughout the presentation, but being mindful in creating records, including taking notes. Creating records, you know, has to be done, and you guys all do important work, and that should be documented. But just be mindful of, you know, what's getting wrote down or what's being shared if you don't need to. Only using city technology in accordance with policies and legal requirements. Don't delete records created in your official capacity without checking with staff first. So this is something if you do have to forward, if you had a scoring rubric for something and you needed to pass that along to staff, make sure that they got it before you delete your copy. And to that end, don't retain it once it's been transferred. So once it's been confirmed to be delivered and staff have it and it's part of the record, you no longer need to retain a copy and you're good to go ahead and purge it. It is a duplicate, it's a copy at that point. And going back to the emails again, you can manage those however you see fit because we already have those captured. And then checking city issued email accounts frequently. And then using automated replies for when you expect to have a prolonged absence. So because we have such strict timelines on responding to public records requests, checking emails frequently, especially maybe within a 5 business day, helps us manage that timeline should you ever receive a request. That concludes public records and public meetings. Training complete. Part two, yes. Right, if there's no questions, I'm gonna pass it along to part 3. All right, part 3.
Thank you, Shannon and Alyssa, for warming up the room for us. All right, terrific. So good evening again, commissioners. Again, my name is Paul White, And this is Brandy Legamina, and we're your deputy city clerks. And tonight, we want to give you a high-level intro into Robert's Rules of Order, and provide some pro tips to help you get the most out of your meetings. So I noticed that not everybody has their copy of Roberts with them today. We were gonna go through page by page.
No.
It's all up here.
I
Got
checked it out at the library. If I had questions. Yeah.
It's a little. It's a little light on plot and characters.
I wish it was the Matrix, you could just plug it into.
No,
And
what
jujitsu.
what we're gonna talk about, we shouldn't take more than like 15 minutes. So if you're a registered parliamentarian, I apologize for how high level this is going to be. All right, so essentially what Roberts is a system of conducting group meetings clearly, fairly, and efficiently. So those three things sometimes are at odds, as we were discussing before with public comment. But those are kind of they form the boundaries for what Roberts is trying to accomplish. Our goal tonight is to reduce any maybe intimidating, bothersome, or bureaucratic notions people may have about Robert's rules, so that you can face any situations that come up clearly and calmly. Let's start with what Robert's rules are intended for and go over some basic principles. These are some basic rules we want you to keep in mind. It's a system that we use so that everyone has a chance to be heard. We all know what we're agreeing to, and no one gets to waste everyone else's time. No one gets to waste everyone else's time. So we're going to go over these topics, starting with taking things one at a time. We take one subject at a time. We take one speaker at a time, so that we're clear about what is the topic of discussion. We know what kinds of decisions we're being asked to make. We use a motion to take action, and motions need a second. Every topic gets full consideration in the form of full and free discussion. And we exercise decorum, speaking and acting with courtesy and professionalism. Now, when it's time to vote, to make a decision, we vote, acting in a way that protects everyone's rights. Notice that these are some of the groups within Roberts, the framework of Roberts, or any parliamentary system really, whose rights are protected in one form or another. For example, the majority has a right for a decision to be made by a vote. In other words, you don't have to agree 100% in order to move forward, okay? There is a right of the minority to participate in the decision-making process, okay? And so that's one of the reasons that we require a quorum in order to do business. And individuals have rights too, like the right for the rules that everyone's agreed to be followed, okay? So when we talk about quorum, which you've heard a lot tonight, and we'll just say that to call a meeting to order, you must have a quorum. We put a little star here next to your case because you're a 7-member, or rather 8-member board with, it's 8 members with 7 counting for quorum, I believe. So we put a little star up here to highlight your case. So you have to have a quorum, and you can't take an action without you having a quorum. Unfortunately, if there aren't enough members present in person or remotely, and you can have remote attendance, the meeting can't take place and it will have to be rescheduled. And I know that we're underscoring some of these things multiple times, but repetition is insistence. It's important to understand the countless hours that are put into meeting preparation, that agency staff have been preparing items for weeks or months, that there may be coordination with presenters from outside organizations the effort and time your fellow board members have taken to show up and be involved, and also the right of the public to be informed. So though all that time gets wasted if you have an unexpected lack of quorum. So, if somehow you manage to lose your quorum during the meeting, know that your meeting does have to adjourn and no further action can be taken.
So a pro tip is if you are running late, to communicate that with staff. If there is no quorum at the beginning of a meeting, the presiding officer can wait a couple minutes and announce to the public if that meeting will need to be rescheduled, or if you'll be just waiting a couple minutes for that quorum to come. If you are running late, which a lot of us can experience, there's traffic and whatnot. Communicating that with staff that you are intending to come, that presiding officer can then announce that a quorum is expected. And that way we can schedule our meeting and let the public know. So a key takeaway here is, again, to discuss your plans with staff. Let us know if you're going to be not attending a meeting, if you're going to be remote. Allowing us that information allows us to schedule meetings so that you can have a more effective and efficient meeting.
Okay. So a motion is how you go about doing something as a group. And we understand that, especially for advisory boards, what you spend most of your time doing is in discussion and debate and vetting, and basically is conversational. And so, and we know that parliamentary procedure really isn't conversational. Sometimes people are put off by the structure of parliamentary speak. We want to reassure you that none of what we're going to say about how we handle motions and action taking is meant to alter in any way how you have respectful, meaningful conversations, okay, as a group. So it's just that when it's time to actually do things, that there's a structure to that, so everyone knows what decisions are being made at that time. So remember to present a motion as a positive statement. We have a little example up here. I move to have ice cream on Mondays.
Love it. Oh, yes.
You would not make a motion as a negating statement. I move we not have ice cream on Mondays. Right. So that's something you don't want to do when you're framing those motions. Once the motion is seconded, sorry, losing my place. That indicates that the proposal has permission to be considered and discussed. Okay, you're not deciding on it, but it's the consent to go ahead and keep talking about it. If a motion doesn't get a second, it's like it never happened. Okay, I know we've all heard the phrase spoken at some point or another after a motion is made, and then there's crickets. The motion dies for the lack of a second. And I just would encourage you to think of it as that motion can't die because it was never alive. That was never an issue before the board. So the idea there is you got to have at least two people who want to talk about something before investing everybody's time in doing that. Okay. Yeah, there are many kinds of motions. But the ones that are most relevant to meetings that you all hold will include main motions, like the ice cream example, amendments, and points of order.
So a pro tip when making your motion is to make a motion that begs the question with a yes or a no answer. Overcomplicating a motion can lead to confusion and ambiguity. So for example, a motion could be, I move to have ice cream on Mondays, where if you were to make a motion that says, I move to have ice cream or spinach on Monday, Tuesdays, or Fridays, it can be a little confusing.
It's not a yes or no
So
question.
don't do that. To make it easy on yourself, have your motion written down ahead of time. Keep it simple, keep it as simple as you can without changing the meaning. For example, I move to recommend that the staff report to the city council be I move to recommend this staff report to the city council as presented.
As opposed to going into all the details again,
Right.
for example. So sometimes the main motion is pretty good, but it just needs a little something. Amendments, it's important for us to remember and be aware that an amendment is not an insult, it's just an alternative, okay? And you know, whether or not the mover agrees with the amendment or not is really kind of irrelevant. Because once something's been moved and seconded, it belongs to the whole group, okay? So sometimes you'll hear about some special like sides dealing going on in meetings you may attend where it's like, well, I offer a friendly amendment. That means we don't have to vote on it, you know? Just need a couple of people to say yes. But really, that's not a thing. Really, once you've moved and seconded, that question is in the ownership of the whole group as a whole. So, and the motion to amend, you know, it doesn't mean, you know, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. It just means, would it be better if? And I know that sometimes if there is division within a group on a particular subject, it's easy to mistake the action of amending as some kind of an aggressive, you know, tactic. And it certainly does get used that way, but I doubt that that will happen for you, and it doesn't need to be that way. So characteristics for an amendment, remember that it does require a second and that it is its own motion and it should get its own vote. For example, taking our ice cream example again, I move to amend the motion to read strawberry ice cream. Yeah. I wouldn't vote for that either. I wouldn't even second that.
So a pro tip for our chair is to remember that the amendment isn't the main motion. Remember to go back and finish the vote on the main motion.
They both get a vote. So points of order, probably gonna be fairly rare for you all. But it is a common type of motion. And it's something that can help correct if things get a little off the rails. Some things to remember about a point of order is this is one of those rare motions that does not require a second. Okay, this is the right of the individual to make sure that the rules are being followed. Okay. So it legitimately interrupts the flow of the meeting. A point of order has to be dealt with before you can continue with other business. It must be raised as soon as whatever the error is that is being proposed happens. If you wait until later, then it becomes more complicated because the group makes decisions and moves on, and then it gets harder to sort out. It's important to remember that the chair has to resolve the point of order. I've been in lots of meetings where the chair listened to people's opinions, took some advice and just said, okay, well, I guess we'll move on now. But the chair really does need to say, well, the point of order is either well taken or not well taken. And when that happens, if the chair makes a mistake, the group can disagree. The body can disagree with the chair's ruling and by a vote can override it. So as an example, something that might commonly happen, you've just taken a vote. Member might say, a point of order, the chair failed to call for the nays. Because of course you have to call for nays as well as yeas. And the chair might respond and say, well, actually, I did request the nays. So the point is not well taken. You've given a ruling, okay? But we're trying to be respectful and courteous toward each other. So you might at that point say, however, if the member would like to have the vote retaken, because presumably they're asking for the nays because they wanted to vote against whatever it was. At that stage, you can still retake the vote as an example. So you could propose that. We try to assume good intent and take a solution-oriented approach when it comes up. If, the nays were not taken, then the chair might say, oh, the member's point is well taken. Are there any nays? And then conclude it that way. And you just move on from there.
So pro tip, there are a number of reasons to recess for a few minutes. If the board agrees to recess, announce it to the public and staff so that we all can be informed on when the meeting will come back and the recess will be over. So if it gets weird, chair, feel free to take a break.
Sometimes a point of order can be complicated too.
Sure.
So just give yourself time, take a second, make sure everyone's clear. So once a motion's made and seconded, it should be discussed among the board. Roberts offers some structure for that discussion to help keep it clear and orderly. Roberts does indicate that the member making the motion has the first opportunity to discuss it. And from there, it's the presiding officer's responsibility to give each member the opportunity to speak before anyone speaks again. Now, everyone doesn't have to speak, but everyone needs to be given the chance. This is the meat and potatoes of determining how the action is going to come out. The important thing, of course, to remember is to be courteous and professional. All board members have the opportunity to express their thoughts. However, it must be orderly and one at a time.
So pro tip for our chair is to use a checklist of all the board members to solicit comments. You can go around round robin style. And each member has the opportunity to pass or speak at that moment, but everybody will have the chance to speak.
It's also really helpful when you have remote members. Sometimes people forget whether they're muted, for example, maybe they're trying to comment and, so you just go ahead and call on them, right? Which I noticed you did earlier, which was awesome.
I'm feeling like going back through my mind of what I did right and wrong. I didn't know this was exactly what we're. Gold stars already. She got a 6 out of.
We're not keeping score at this meeting.
Oh.
Okay. So while debate is a healthy way for boards to determine the best action to take, it's vital that the discussion stay on point on the topic that's under consideration, and that there's not room for remarks that don't pertain to the debate. So, for example, remarks that don't pertain to debate, that are not germane, include these things: personal remarks, insulting language, personal attacks, profanity, vulgarity, inflammatory remarks, okay? Important to remember, and we had a nice long vetting of this earlier, that these rules don't apply to the public during their 3 minutes of comment. Okay. But, we want to maintain decorum and respect each other when we're doing our debate, which I'm sure is part of your normal practice of how you work through discussions on different things. But that's all we mean by decorum. I guess that's my point.
So sometimes during debate, the temperature in the room can get a little hot. One way to kind of mitigate some of this is to speak in the third person to your chair. Speaking in the third person and directing all your comments to the chair, it may sound kind of formal and awkward, but it's a really good way to avoid argumentative statements. And also remember, if the meeting is getting a little hot, that it's okay to take a break, to recess.
Once the topic has been thoroughly discussed, the board can call for the vote. For there to be action, the win must be by majority vote. Again, we've put a little star. Well, let's see, the star in this case, because you have 8 voting members, correct? 8 voting members. So,
Seven, because with our youth council.
he counts,
Counts as a vote, but not a
he does,
quorum.
his vote does count,
Count, but not.
but not for quorum. But if for a majority, then the star actually should be next to the 8.
9.
Sometimes a member may have a conflict of interest regarding the item that's being discussed. So what's a conflict of interest? This is when there's any situation in which financial or other personal considerations may unduly influence the member's judgment. If you believe that you may have a conflict of interest, you want to discuss that with staff as soon as it comes up, as soon as you realize it. And please definitely before the meeting starts, at which you're going to be talking about that topic. And this is important. You want to refrain from participating in the discussion and voting process. So we're talking about a bona fide conflict of interest, or something that might appear to be a conflict of interest. You have financial benefit that comes out of the thing, or, you know, you work for the soccer association, and so you're, you know, there's a specific question. Is it down to soccer fields or racquetball courts? Okay, so those are the kinds of situations. There's always gray areas there. And this is not meant to be sort of a high level course on conflict of interest. But if you don't have a conflict, a bona fide conflict, then you should be voting, okay, on every question that's put.
So pro tip, Chair, remember that you're also part of the board, so make sure you vote. Be sure to ask for the nays, even if there aren't any. And make sure that you declare the outcome once the vote is carries. If the consensus is obvious, use this little magic. If there's no objection, please show the motion adopted. Make sure you pause. Board members, it's up to you to voice if you want to put in a yay or a nay. So make sure that you take advantage of that pause.
I have a question about the majority. If someone does have a conflict of interest and they're abstaining from that vote, does that change? Is it the majority of who is now remaining voting, or is it the majority of who was originally there for the quorum to vote?
It's a bit.
Great
Abstentions
question.
not a vote.
Question, Commissioner
It's
Wheeler.
It's still of the whole.
It's a majority of the total number.
Yeah.
There are boards where, and I worked for one of them, where the vote to pass certain measures required a majority of the membership. And as far as I know, you don't have that kind of a requirement. So, you know, if you only had 4 people, if it was a 5-member board and there were only 4 people present, it's still, or let's say if you had 2 people were absent, you still had a quorum of 3. they had to all vote in favor in order for that to pass. That's not usually going to be the case for you. It's usually the majority of who's in the pool of voters.
So it's left over, so that vote is taken out of or that individual is taken out of the equation. And that's who's remaining of the majority of the remainder.
And keep in mind that they're taking themselves out of the equation by not participating in the conversation and hopefully leaving the room, right? You may have heard of the Heisenberg principle, that the observer affects the experiment. If I am, stand to benefit financially from the purchase of a large park property by the city, my staying in the room, watching you, has an effect on how the conversation unfolds. So it's better for the group if I go outside. And if that creates a quorum problem, then there are exceptions that we can make in those cases. Talked about remote attendance a little bit. Make sure you inform staff if you're going to be remote. And when you are remote, remember to use the raise hand feature. I noticed that your commissioner tonight was doing that. And to keep your audio and video on, at least when voting. And I noticed that you all have been doing that tonight too, so kudos for that.
We definitely have some pros here tonight because a pro tip would be, if possible, keep your video on throughout the meeting. The chair and the public will see that you are present and participating. Having the technology to have our meetings over Zoom is wonderful. But we do also understand that there are sometimes going to be some technical difficulties. So as a good faith gesture and to show transparency, default to having your cameras on. And if there are any technical difficulties, at that point, you can reach out to your staff liaison and we can start troubleshooting that scenario.
So just a few last things, miscellaneous things to recommend. If you're ever uncomfortable with how the flow should go through a meeting, let us know because we can be a resource. We can prepare scripts or prompt language if that's helpful. In the roll call, calling out everyone's names at the start of the meeting is a really great transparency and accountability feature. And I noticed that you had everyone introduce themselves tonight. Really liked that. Also really liked that you repeated who had moved and seconded the motions. That's very helpful for whoever's clerking your meeting. We really appreciate it. And then if the meeting starts to get long and you need to take a break, a member can ask for the chair, for the board to take a recess, you get the chair's attention and, would this be a good time for a recess? And if everyone's okay with that, then that's what you do. One of the good places to use that unanimous consent sleight of hand is in one of those situations we were talking about before where you have a disruption, a bona fide disruption of your meeting, and you as a board need to agree to adjourn. When it is obvious that people are shouting and throwing things at you and whatever else is happening, the chair can say, if there's no objection, we will stand in recess. And it's your responsibility as members of the board to speak up if you disagree. And that's how the chair knows that that's okay. That's how your clerk knows that that was agreed to by all of you without having to go through all of the steps and take the yeas and nays to do it. So there are times when it's helpful to use it as like a shortcut. So, you have any questions for us or any special sticky scenarios that you've encountered that you want to ask about? We'd be happy to deal with those, answer those for you now.
I have questions. So my first one is when presenters come to speak, is it common etiquette courtesy that they go through their whole presentation and we hold our questions till the end? Or is it better to speak, or if we have a question when the presentations are going through, that we ask questions, raise our hands while a presenter's in?
That's a great question, and it varies a lot from board to board. And it varies a lot, depending on the circumstances. For example, if you were holding an actual public hearing, you might want to be more formal about that. And hold, questions until after the presentation was concluded. Or, you might just take questions as they go. It depends on the board, it depends on the presenter. Sometimes it throws the presenter off if they're very nervous and not used to doing that sort of thing. And I'm not positive, but I sort of get the impression that you have more of an informal style here. So, there's nothing wrong with taking questions as you go through. So there have been cases though, when I've had board members start to ask questions and the presenter has said, no. Well, I'll get to that in a minute.
Well,
You
because
could ask me that in a minute.
presentations, they start and go in different directions during the presentation, and then the presenter is answering questions, but we're not getting through the presentation, or there's answers in the presentation.
It's a balance and a preference. And I think this style works really well to have questions fielded, at least for myself personally as a presenter. When you're on the topic, fielding that question is great, but if I know we're getting to it, I also have the opportunity to be like, great question, we actually are gonna cover that in a few slides. So I would say, both. I don't think it's,
There's no decorum that's associated with it.
There's not a hard and fast rule.
I'll just add on to what they're saying, Chair Goodwin, that, Paul mentioned, some people may prefer questions as you go or questions at the end, depending on the presenter's style. And so, you can always ask too, would you like questions now or would you like all the questions at the end? And then you can get some feedback from each presenter on that way.
I think you might have some hands raised.
Okay. Commissioner Dykstra, you have a question or comment?
I saw Bill's hand raised first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait. Sorry, Commissioner Fosbury, I can't see it. I see your smile. I
I'm
don't-
trying, but this is so weird. Okay.
You're trying your emoji.
Yes. Are these mandates from the council? Are we supposed to limit comment to 3 minutes? Are we supposed to do exactly what is in this protocol, or can the chair deviate?
That's a great question, Commissioner, and this is to standardize all of the public comment across all of the advisory boards. So the council, in adopting the advisory board handbook, standard protocols and ground rules with their updates, these are now effectively the public comment rules for all advisory boards.
Perfect. Commissioner Dykstra?
My comment was just about the presentation to hold questions to the end or not. I think that we could let that be up to each presenter, because I think different presenters have different styles.
Yeah, and I think my clarification is from the chair's perspective. Do you ask that before we start a meeting? Or before a presentation, would they prefer to have it? Just so we stay on target with timeframes and time management as we go. Because sometimes our questions get very lengthy and then we're getting past the presenter's time. So that was kind of for my own edification. But thank you, yes.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else, Commissioner Wheeler? And then I have another question. After you do your motion and your second, do you ask for discussion after the second? Do you ask for that? Ask for discussion, okay.
That is typical.
Typical.
That is the common practice, yes.
Sometimes I miss that. I don't do the discussion part. I just go into, so every once in a while. Yeah. And then if we do decide to do a recess, do you give time to be determined? Do we announce that when we're coming back and we're gonna return to our meeting if we do a
It's-
restroom break or something?
It makes for nice predictability for the membership and for the public. The important thing to remember is that if you take a recess and you say, we will begin again at 6:30, you can't start again until 6:30.
Okay.
You don't want to exclude people. That's kind of the whole point of the OPMA.
I think it's also good practice too, if at 6:30, you know, the recess could go longer to announce the length in which you think it's going. So maybe you say 6:35.
Okay, give a little extra cushion time.
But then again, going back to Paul's statement, once you make that, then waiting till 6:35 to restart,
Okay, perfect.
return.
And I believe that is all of my questions.
Those are good ones. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. And then I'm like getting a grade after this class, so do we meet at?
That's going to be up to Jen and
Yeah, he's giving me a class.
I think based on what we saw and experienced, again, you all did a fantastic job. So across the board.
Oh,
We appreciate your time and all of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thanks, commissioners, for making me look good. Appreciate
you.
that very much.
Thank you.
Did anybody need a certificate for training, just to?
Well, thank you.
I will just put mine in my file. I trust you with.
Okay.
I trust you.
We'll take care of it all then.
Perfect. Thank you all for your presentation
Thank you
and
again.
time, question, answers. Appreciate it very much.
We got your back, Chair.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Fosbury. I appreciate it. And now we're going to move on to our enhancement program by Jenny Wilson, our senior parks planner.
And we're gonna have questions, Jenny. Sorry.
Would you like us to wait for your presentation to finish, or would you like would you like questions during your presentation?
I
No,
have-
let her present, but Hillary's got a question.
We can't see the screen. Hold on one moment, Commissioner Dykstra, so we can see you.
Oh. I have a very sleepy baby, so do we have action items after this? I just don't wanna, or will it mess up the quorum if I leave? I think we have, I think we have enough.
Yeah, like 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can peel off if you need to. We have enough, we have quorum right now.
If I disappear, I just want you to know that that's why there's not like a chat feature where I can.
Oh, I gotcha.
I'm here for now, but I might have to disappear.
Right. I have this pulled open.
I'm sorry, I'm with my stepdad. We're in the nursing home, so having fun.
All right.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for being here, Commissioner Fosbury. Are you here in Washington? Yes. Okay, yes, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so our next item tonight is our enhancements. You did announce this, right? Or did I just start
Yes.
asking? Okay, so sorry.
And I was asking, would you like us to ask
Okay.
questions during your
Okay.
presentation or at the end after
Okay.
you're completed with your presentation?
It's up to you guys.
It's your preference.
I can go through it a little bit and then you can ask questions.
Okay.
Okay, so enhancements program, again, this is, we get community requests for enhancements in the park. Twice a year, we review them. We get them, we review them in February and August each year. It's reviewed by a staff committee. During this time frame when we reviewed them, we had 5 applications that were submitted. So the staff is recommending approving one of the applications. The other applications were not approved. However, some alternatives were provided to the applicants. The one that we're recommending for approval was a memorial bench and tree at Hicks Lake or Winters Park. We'll go into incredible detail. Hopefully you guys have read through it. The family is willing to pay for the bench and the tree. Jamie's on the committee. He didn't think that would increase any maintenance impact because they already have benches and trees there, so. The next one is a poetry, request for poetry kiosks at Red Cuyo Park. We are recommending that that one not be approved. There really was not sustainable funding for it. The proposal didn't identify funding source for the construction and ongoing maintenance.
So I have a question. So is a poetry kiosk like the library?
No, but sorry, the kiosks that are being, that were requested are permanent structures.
Like the ones out at the rack?
Okay, yeah, kind of, it didn't really specify, but they were permanent in-ground ones. I would say that there weren't incredible specifics, but my impression of the request was that they were more similar to like the trail kiosk ones that are like on the Woodland Trail. So permanent in-ground ones that were, they would be specific to
Motivational poetry or?
yeah, specific to outdoor, you know, related nature poetry. So obviously lovely idea, just, you know, challenges that, you know, workload, didn't identify a funding source. Those are very expensive to install and maintain. Also just, you know, Great Cuyo Park hasn't really been built and signage packages already.
Celebrate nature by putting a man-made sign.
Right, right. So just, you know, we have signage already identified, and so just making sure that everything is consistent and keeping with the aesthetic is we wanna make changes. So I did give the recommendation of perhaps using the temporary signage. So the person that is requesting it is our poet laureate. So I don't know that we would recommend signage to somebody who would, or a program that wasn't really a Lacey program, but the signage that is, this is a photo taken at Wonderwood Park, so it's the Lacey Library Story Trail program. So we thought that this might be a good cheaper alternative because funding wasn't identified. So it's really hard to just say no. So it's really nice to try to find a way to say yes. So this would not be permanent. Yeah.
I kind of stepped back to the bench one, it's just out of curiosity. I know that the city of Lacey has, within the parks, have been utilizing specific benches.
Yes.
To make them streamlined. You know, we use them in the Gold Star project. Is it similar to that?
Yes. And sorry.
I just didn't see anything imaging.
Yeah, with this program, with the enhancements program, there is only, if somebody wants a memorial bench, there's only one. There's two types, but currently there's only one type because there's a manufacturing problem with the other type. So really the only type that they can get is a standardized.
The same one that's over there?
Yep.
Okay, well, I just knew that that was what Jen had stated, that was kind of being streamlined through everything moving forward, and I was just curious.
Yeah, the nice thing about when somebody requests a bench is we know exactly what they're gonna get. It's, you know, a black wrought iron bench that's, you know, can be customized to what they want, but it's durable, it's gonna last. So there's, it's consistent aesthetic for the parks, so.
Okay, I just, thank you very
Yeah,
much,
thank
I
you
was just
for-
curious.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. And then the other one that was not approved was a permanent cricket pitch. So this was the Polynesian Association of Thurston County. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Phil.
Commissioner Salisbury, do you have a?
Oh, I was just gonna say on this particular, is there a way we can say something not approved? Is there a different nomenclature we could use here to say, yeah, we're considering it, but it's not in our budget? I'm not talking about the cricket pitch. I'm talking about stuff where we haven't budgeted it, but it's a great idea, but you haven't come up with a financing source.
Yeah, yes. So when
Sorry,
I'll
throwing a
yeah,
bunch of
I hear
words
ya.
out there for you.
Right. So when I reply to them, I definitely give them that information, you know. So when when I come to you guys, I'm looking for action, and the action has to be approved, not approved. So it has, you know, this has to be a little bit more formal with you guys, but my response to them, you know, the actual person who's making the request is not it's not approved. It's, hey, would you consider a more temporary option like the Story Trails one because you haven't identified a significant funding source or ongoing maintenance? So I'm softer. I'm softer with the response because, yeah.
But she's helping us with our motion when we have
Right.
to approve or not approve this enhancement program.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, because it's down there, we suggest they consider an alternative that is more
Thank
cost
you for,
efficient.
yeah, thank you for that though.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Perfect, okay, perfect.
God, this is so bizarre. I haven't been on Zoom in for like a year. Okay.
Yes, yeah, it is hard because, you know, you want to be clear and give them the clear information, but I always.
But you don't want to give them, you know, inflated ideas of, you know, we're gonna support this with city funding. Yep, I understand.
Okay, so then the permanent cricket pitch, this was the Polynesian Association of Thurston County. They were requesting a permanent 70-foot. Oh,
We didn't get this in our packet.
I don't.
Yeah, it was,
Oh, it might have been on the,
oh,
it wasn't in part of my, maybe.
it's like on the back of the
It's kind of in a.
big packet. It's just a kind of,
so
it's
like-
not separate like normally.
Oh, here it is. Oh.
Yeah, that's
I
what-
thought
it's at the
it's
very-
it's behind the.
That's why I was saying they're
No,
hiding.
okay, my mistake. Okay, I got
Just
it.
picking on you.
No, I thought, yep, good.
Yep, and
Look,
this
I was
is
sitting over
where
here
they
being
made an
annoying.
excellent pitch. But it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out financially, but
right.
go
and
ahead, Jenny.
This is, the gentleman he came to a Parks Board meeting a while ago, as you recall. So, they wanted a permanent, concrete 70-foot pitch installed they requested Woodland Creek Park. Specifically that big open area, at Woodland Creek or the rack between two of the upper soccer fields, 5 and 6, I believe, or between two soccer fields at Rainier Vista. Their request specifically, you know, the city would need to supply the equipment, materials, engineering, design, maintenance. They were willing to supply volunteers for the construction. So again, this was, you know, challenging because it's still a lot of the, you know, construction costs would fall to us, which, yeah, it's just gonna be quite a bit. The open field, while it looks like a lovely open field, I did check with our Water Resources Department, and that is an underground infiltration facility for reclaimed water. So they were very concerned and said, no, you can't construct anything there. So it would damage having trucks drive on there, any permanent facility, anything permanent would be potentially damaging, so they were not in favor of that. Permanent pitch between two soccer fields, really anywhere, at the rack, at Rainier Vista. Really any site would prevent alternative field configurations. I checked in with Sue and Sean, and you know, sometimes those fields are used for soccer, sometimes they're used for football, and sometimes they're used for volleyball. So really how permanent concrete pitch in the middle of them would really probably present some safety concerns, but also just really impact other user groups. So again, don't want to say no to anybody. So I did reach out to the existing cricket club that's using the rack. They purchased a portable pitch. They are very willing to share it. I connected them, they just, you know, wanted to connect with the existing group, and they're willing to share. They just need to talk through it and ask permission. So and just gave them, you know, the information on how to rent the fields. So there is certainly an avenue for them to have a temporary pitch, which I think is something that we discussed when they came, was a short-term solution, which is really within our ability right now. And then the next one that we had was an allergy awareness sign request. So somebody had requested that we have some permanent metal signs be posted in all of our parks that lists the top 9 allergies, food allergies, and request that we don't allow food allergens, list the top 9, ask them not to be eaten in the playground areas, that hand sanitizer isn't enough to remove the allergens. So again, no funding for the signs was identified, to really, understand the concern. But it's also not really consistent with our current practice, which is we don't really post cautionary signs. We have pretty hard time getting people to follow our own
Regular signs.
right? So
They're animal poop.
yeah. So anyways, lovely idea, but just, sometimes people can become sign blind when you have too many signs. So and then the last one was a family that was interested in donating some land at the end of Pattison Lake. And part of the enhancements policy is that this actually gets reviewed by the city manager, public works director, and the Parks and Recreation director. And they reviewed this and decided not to accept this. It was 85 acres along Yelm Highway. It has a manufactured residence, frame-built garage, large shed, in uninhabitable condition. There's, wetlands on there. This was really just not accepted for a few reasons. As you guys know from our comp plan, we're just not really in a property acquisition era. We have a lot of undeveloped property, but also this area is environmentally sensitive for critical groundwater resources. And so, yeah, this area of the city just needs further study to determine if it's even appropriate to be more of an urban reserve or even removed from the urban growth area entirely.
Would it not be beneficial for us to have this to preserve that wetland, or would it be able to use it as mitigating for pocket gophers and stuff like that? Or is it because it's a wetland, it would not classify as that?
Right, and we did look at that. I did reach out to see if it would be a compatible possible trade for gophers, and it's not. It does not have gopher because we are developing Rack Phase 3, and it does not have gopher.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually met with Fish and Wildlife. They said no, no.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Osprey has.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and Commissioner Wheeler, I looked at this too, and I thought this would be perfect, but no, you're absolutely right. This is not a park type facility. It is conservation land, but not for City of Lacey. It's urban growth. We'll
Right.
get there. We'll see what happens, but it's not park.
Yeah. And I think that was part of, that's part of why the Public Works Director is on the review committee, and that's really kind of his area to trust me.
I know I wasn't
Lakefront property is
why do
near and dear
you
to
think of that? Or just really.
No, trust me, lakefront property is near and dear to my heart more than
Your
you know.
wetland, it's like, how do we get
So
there?
I was on that, so yeah, I'll certainly, if you guys have any questions, but this is an item that we would like action on.
And we do it as one, the
Yep.
whole program? We don't have to do each one?
No,
approved?
no, I think,
One you approved, then the ones you didn't approve, we just say yes or no.
yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna try this and then do points of order on me if I mess something up, all right? All right, so we are looking for a motion for the enhancement program update. Do we have approval or a motion for the?
Point of order, I would just say as presented by.
Thank you. Good job.
Oh,
Good
there you
job.
go.
Have done this. Yeah.
Yeah, do it one more time?
I would say
As
as
presented.
presented by the
Okay.
senior park planner, whatever your official title is.
Oh, come on, it's even
I-
deeper than that.
I will make a motion.
I see that we have future chairs in our enhancement program update. Okay, so based on Jenny Wilson's presentation, our senior parks planner, do we have a motion for the enhancement program update to be approved?
I motion.
Make a second.
Motion by Commissioner Wheeler and a second by Commissioner Good. Okay. Is there any is there any discussion?
You got it.
Any discussion? Alright. Hearing none, all those in favor of the enhancement program update, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Alright, all those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, you have the approval, motion carries for the.
Do we need to, just one more point of clarification, do we need to document in the minutes that
Commissioner Dykstra does.
I do.
Thank you.
He's
No.
on it, all right.
Carter
Way to
pays
go,
attention.
Carter.
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we are moving on to our reports for the commissioners. Is there anyone that would like to present for the commissioners tonight?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
I just want to say I live by the rack and I go by there quite a bit. And I just want to say it looks absolutely beautiful and they have done a phenomenal job. And I can't say how excited I am that the mushroom farm is going away, but.
Yes.
But, yes. But I'm continually, and I caught sight of, the electric, parking spaces too, which I really am glad to see too as well, so.
I think they're gonna be open and running soon. I don't know that they're all.
Yeah, I haven't gone over there,
Okay.
but just seeing, that was incorporated in there and, all of the landscaping, everything that I see is just looks absolutely beautiful
nice.
and looks all fancy over there. Just want to say that. I'm like, ooh.
A parking lot would make such a big difference, but the frontage, everything. looks really
Well,
nice,
after having to drive through that muddy parking lot to catch my middle schoolers, I'm so glad to see that paved now.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a chaos anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Good.
organized and clean.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you for acknowledging it. That's nice. I like hearing good things about our parks.
Definitely. It's just nice to kind of drive by it, seeing it every day and how good it looks. So.
Commissioner Davey, anything? Commissioner Wheeler? Commissioner Fosbury, do you have anything for the good of the order? No? Okay. Moving on to the chair. I just wanted to give a shout out to Commissioner Wheeler. He is downtown Olympia on Capitol and Fourth. I don't know if anybody has been down there.
Is that thing still up?
It'll be up until the end of October.
You're
But-
down there?
No, there's an art prod that she's on as well, so. it's,
Yeah, there's a corner front window and display area, and there's a local artist for Olympia who's taking photos, big black and white photos. I think they're 10 by, well,
they're
they're-
digital screens and they
Yeah.
swap to different people.
and they move to different frames, but Commissioner Wheeler was on there. I saw him one night when I was passing by and I was like, I know him. It's a very cool display. And then the free clinic is on there as well.
Is it highlighting you as?
It's just highlighting people who are do stuff in the community. So it's just like community-minded people.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's Cooper Karas. Yeah,
I haven't
Karas.
seen that.
Yeah, but it's on
Which corner is it on?
Capitol and Fourth, at the old Selden's furniture store.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got a lot of great community members working in the net area that are contributing to the greatness of Thurston County. So it's a pretty cool project. So if you get a chance,
us out.
celebrate that. Yeah, so just wanted to do a shout out for that. And our recreation manager, Sue Baylash, are you?
It's me tonight.
Oh, you look just like her.
I know,
All
I
right,
know.
thanks, Jenny, for
Can't
doing
believe-
it.
Yes, and she's all the rest of these people.
Right, yep,
so.
it's me.
Yes.
So I'll be giving Sue's report tonight. So Christianka Schaefer, I'm not sure if you knew this, but Christianka Schaefer resigned. She's moving out of state.
No.
It feels like we haven't met for a while, so she resigned and left. We posted her position and the position closed and we have a new the position closed September 20th, so interviews are happening soon.
Is Christianka, did a lot of events,
Yep,
like she was,
yep.
her husband's in the military, okay.
You go to Texas.
Yeah, she was really, really great. She came and did a lot of the metrics and
Yeah.
yeah, she was really great.
She
So-
gave us our cups, right?
Oh,
She was-
it might have been Jeanette that came with the, I can't remember, but
Okay.
yeah,
She's at all the park.
right,
She was
right.
great.
She was really, really great. So, but happy that she's, moving closer to family out of. And then summer obviously closed since we last met and programs were busy, successful. And then fall registration has started. Revenue was higher than last fall, so all signs are pointing to a busier fall than usual, so we're excited about that. Pretty short and sweet for some.
Wonderful. Parks Maintenance Supervisor, given by Jenny Wilson.
So Jamie Oakland is obviously our Parks Maintenance Supervisor, and so I have his report. So they have been removing bollards. They've removed 12 so far from parks, and that's really from a recommendation from WCIA. And I believe that comes from some risk of people on bikes hitting them. So I think there's been some lawsuits from that, not in the city of Lacey, so we're moving them where possible when there's not a risk. They have been installing some parking enforcement signs at Woodland Creek Park, at the depot site, and at the museum. They finished the warranty walkthrough for the landscape materials at the new rack parking lot. They've been top dressing the athletic fields at Rainier Vista, with 120 tons of sand, which seems like a lot. They did their quarterly play toy inspections. They are painted restrooms at Rainier Vista and the rack. They groomed the synthetic infields at the rack. They installed no trespassing signs at 14 undeveloped city properties. They removed almost 9 tons of sod and soil from 1 mile of turf strips on Ruddle Road. Soil builds up over time, making it difficult to maintain. So every 10 years it gets scraped back.
Yeah, it looks really sandy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very silty.
They worked with the South Puget Sound Disc Golf Association to do additional disc golf planning at Cuyo Park. So that's exciting, moving along. Remove broken feature at Thornberry Park. Just on the playground there, it was like that tic-tac-toe feature. Replaced the basketball backboards at Lake Point Park. Installed some buoys offshore at Wanchers Park. Repaired 2 park gate entrances or 2 park gates at entrances. Sad to always report this, but responded to 16 graffiti incidents. But happy to report that they captured surveillance images of 2 people associated with 10 of those incidents and had Lacey police trespass the individuals from Lacey Parks. So that's very exciting. Pruned 26 acres of ornamental landscape trees in right-of-ways. This is an annual project that ensures safe sight lines along Lacey streets. It requires over 900 hours of labor and 13 tons of vegetation is removed from the right-of-ways.
So there's a bunch of trees that were taken down. Was it college or?
I just noticed that today too.
It's like those orange stump, oh, those were trees.
Right. Yeah, I'm guessing that might be part of it, but
Yeah.
that seems, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. Prune street trees in school zones that obstructed school zone site.
It's probably.
Right. So that's, yeah, I'm not sure, but that seems a little bit more than pruned. I'm not sure.
Prune down.
Or back.
Right.
Prune them
But
down.
my guess is that they'll.
The canopy was getting pretty, I think they're probably just gonna replace it with maybe
Right,
smaller
right,
trees.
I'm sure, but I can ask. Yeah, so that was Jamie's report.
I did have a question. I noticed that there are probably 10 brand new like park benches, like lined up at Wonderwood Park, like next to the baseball field. And they're like lined up. And I didn't know if like Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I know what happened. So was it within like the last couple weeks?
Just the last couple days, like I didn't see, I was gonna go see today, but it was yesterday that I saw them and I'm like, are they permanently gonna be here
Oh,
or?
let me ask. I had heard that I heard from somebody that there was like, somebody who had a wedding out there.
Okay,
And that we might have moved some benches to
Accommodate.
accommodate a
Levy at
wedding.
the baseball fields at one time?
Right, but I'm not sure. So let me check on that.
okay, yeah, no, they look like, I'm like, why would they be moved here? They don't look like they're like the normal park benches that we normally have. Unless I just didn't see the other area where they were taken from, but I'm like, why would they be? I'm like, so I was like, oh, that's the park.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'll
somebody
check.
else.
I don't know. I'm actually gonna be out there tomorrow.
Okay.
So anyways. So I'll go into my report unless you wanna know me.
No, go, I've seen your parks plan.
Good, now it's my report.
Yeah.
So, the RAC kiosk project is moving along. The historic panels were approved by the Historic Commission, and I'm gonna show you guys what those look like. I have some-
Yeah, I'll just put it back up on the calendar there. Our youth commission,
It's got homework to do, right? You got homework to do, right?
Yeah.
You can leave.
his rides here.
Well, see, man, glad to have you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Hey, wait a minute, he's from Timberline. He can do this.
Go
Blazers.
It's a nice school. Football rules.
Jenny, did you set, this was in the packet, right?
This was not, no.
Okay.
No. So this is really more of a historic commission project. I can email these out to you. So that you can have a better look at them, but so the kiosk is really more, the structure was kind of more something that I worked on. The historic panels and the information, this is really more of the historical commission's side of it. So they're working with Thurston County Historic Commission, our commission, to come up with the content and get this all approved. So this was recently approved at their last commission meeting. So I thought you'd like to see just a little bit about the content that's gonna be on there. And so I think now that it's been approved, it should be coming, they're gonna work on getting it printed and actually posted out there. So one of the panels, one of the panels will be on St. Martin's University. One is on the Nisqually tribe. One is on the Nisqually Delta. I know you can't read this, so I can email it out to you. One is on the Evergreen Ballroom.
On fire.
JBLM. Regional Athletic Complex. And obviously the city of Lacey. And then it has some historical points of interest.
Well, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
And this is permanent, right? They were not gonna be updating the history on there? Is it-
It's pretty permanent, but they can be updated. And I think that is their long-term plan, is that they can be removed and,
This is at that kiosk at the rack.
yep.
Cool.
You understand Elvis went to the Evergreen Ballroom.
I did not know that, but it might be
Yes.
in that information. I didn't read it that closely, so.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, thank you. So related to planning, the McKinney House project that's been on our work plan for a while is moving forward. The first step is to have a wetland delineation completed. So we have a contract ready with a group named Ecological Land Services. So that was awarded and they're gonna be out there, actually, I think this Friday, starting their site visit. So that's moving along. So I'll keep you updated on that. This week, I worked with Water Resources. We are hosting over 400 Camacho Middle School students at Wonderwood Park as part of their science program. This is a joint endeavor with the Public Works Resources team, but really Allie Brown, who has come and lectured with us before. She's really spearheading it. The students are rotating through 3 stations. One of them is a parks planning station with me. So I'm using Greg Cuyo Park as kind of a backdrop for them to learn about parks planning and giving them kind of a blank map of Cuyo Park and giving them some ideas to get them started and letting them dream their own park. So they're coming up with some really great ideas, some kind of off the wall ideas, but some really great ones. It's
And they
really
came
fun.
up with the funding for it too.
No.
Oh.
The first day that we were out there, I started talking to them about funding and after that.
They checked out.
Yep, after that, I was like, this is not fun. So no money talk anymore. And then they go through a station they do a nature walk, identifying plants and species, and then they have an interactive game. So there's a lot of kids coming through there. So it's been fun, really tiring. Tomorrow's the last day. So it's been, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. So teachers have been great. It's been really fun. And then for grants, excited to report that we received our preliminary rankings for the RCO, the Washington Wildlife Recreation WWRP Local Parks Grant. So if you remember, Jen and I worked on applying for Bush Park Playground replacement and the Rainier Vista pickleball ping pong tables and safety net replacement project out at Rainier Vista. So we ranked 16th for Rainier Vista and 26th for the Bush Park project. So that doesn't sound great, but that's pretty good.
I was gonna say, is that competitive?
It doesn't sound great. So I think 16th is pretty good. 26th. Maybe not. We're not sure. But the Rainier Vista was the most expensive one. That was almost, $900,000. So if we get, half of that funded, that.
They just need to sit down there and see how you can't get on a pickleball court.
Right. And that was our whole pitch.
Or they take over the tennis courts and then the tennis people are standing.
Right. That was our whole pitch to them. We had to come up with the whole PowerPoint and present it to them. So it was a lot of work. So hopefully it pays off. So we won't actually know until the funding, until the state capital budget is approved, which will determine how far down the list that money goes. So we'll keep you updated. And then Parks Improvement Funding Work Group, since you guys have last met, they met September 16th and 30th. And we've covered the comprehensive plan update and current and potential future parks funding opportunities. We encourage you to watch the last meetings. The last one was the comprehensive financial conditions and potential new funding sources. It's about an hour long and it's really informative. Our finance director was there. And so some of the members, if you're going on the tour on Friday, a few members will be there. And the next meetings are October 14th and 28th. So we're moving along, but meetings feel like they're back to back. So
I didn't realize there was one on the 30th.
yeah. And then just our upcoming Parks Board business, just our next meeting in November is when we'll need to hold our 2025 nominations and elections for chair and vice chair positions. So if you want to kind of keep that in your,
Can't believe that's come around again.
you're right.
It's just making you do this again.
Exactly. And then we'll also have to look at the 2025 work plan. And so we'll have a draft in the next meeting. That's mine.
You have a draft for what?
A draft of our 2025 work plan.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
And then, you want me to just go right into directions tonight?
Yes, our director tonight, Jenny Wilson, would like to present some more.
The director's report for tonight, so Jen's not here, had a lot of evening meetings, so we're trying to split things up, so. City Council had a budget workshop, on September 24th. Still working on balancing the 2025 budget, and we'll be bringing a draft to Parks Board in November. Budget process will culminate to December 17th, for City Council budget approval. And an update to Greg Cuyo Park, Phase 1A, still on track for nearing 100% completion towards the end of this year, and construction anticipated to begin in spring 2025. Director Burbidge presented the budget update to City Council in September and proposed the monument sign be dedicated as public art, which is part of the council's policy. Council agreed that this conversation should move forward and she'll be presenting at November 5th council meeting for final approval. So, and then we meet with South Puget Sound Golf Association a few times in September to discuss the tees and basket placement and really kind of honing in on some of those locations. And then also some potential sponsorship opportunities, working with them on that. And then it seems like this was so long ago, but just a follow-up that we had our volunteer appreciation picnic, August 14th at Rainier Vista Park. And I wasn't there, but if you were there, thank you for attending, and please come next summer. We're planning on doing it every summer, so that's the end.
I like sandwich.
Did you go?
We did.
No, yeah, I couldn't make it this year.
I know, I miss you.
I was like, I
Oh, pretty
got so many Maconis, somebody's Maconis, everyone's just home last time, I was excited.
I was like, I thought for sure Commissioner Wheeler would be here, it's free food.
I know.
I did that too. I totally overbought.
Yeah.
The worst thing is to like not have enough sandwiches
Oh,
for
yeah.
volunteers.
Thought about it all years, like I could have taken more.
Yeah.
Like I didn't.
Yes, feed your family.
All
So
right.
that's the end.
Okay, is there anything else for anybody last? Good of the order. We will be adjourning our meeting at.
Well, Elvis did not appear at the Olympics. I just double checked he was at the Lincoln Bowl.
Check yourself.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for clarifying.
There is somebody famous who has been there and I can't remember
I
who. but
know, and I can't remember who it is, but
on
no,
that-
he went
it's
to the
on that
Lincoln.
panel. I'm
Yeah,
gonna send it to you. It's on that panel. You know it.
All right.
Allison Chambers.
yeah. Before
Thank
it
you
burned
for-
down.
Grandfather played
Thank you for being here, while taking care of your
Thank
family.
you.
Do you need us to
Commissioner
move and vote, or can you just?
Oh, yeah.
We're adjourning the meeting at 8:01 PM.
Love it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Appreciate you all.
So maybe see people on Friday?
I'll be there. Are you going to the tour?
I'll be there at the tour.
Are you gonna be at the tour, Chair?
I'll be at the tour.
I'll be at the
Okay.
tour.
I'll show up then.
She has to be at the tour, don't you think?
She has to be.
Couple of obligations now, yes.